Hey Grok, tell me a story about a guy who started in a company at the very bottom, worked his all the way to the top, and then created his own business using AI and becoming very wealthy.
All right, let's dive into a story about ambition, grit, and a touch of tech magic. Picture this, a sprawling city, glittering with neon lights and humming with restless energy. In the heart of it stands a towering glass building, home to Quantum Dynamics, a tech giant that churns out cutting-edge software for global corporations. This is where we meet Jackson Reed, a lanky 22-year-old with a mop of unruly brown hair, a second-hand blazer 2 sizes too big, and a fire in his hazel eyes that burns brighter than the city itself. Jackson's story begins in the basement of Quantum Dynamics, quite literally. He's hired as a mailroom clerk, the kind of job where you're invisible unless someone needs a coffee run or a package deliveries today. The mailroom smells like stale ink and old carpet, with flickering fluorescent lights that hum a monotonous tune. Jackson spends his days sorting envelopes, pushing a creaky cart through endless hallways, and dodging the occasional paper jam in the ancient copier. His coworkers, a mix of jaded lifers and daydreaming temps, tell him to keep his head down and collect his paycheck. But Jackson's not built for that. He's got a notebook stuffed in his back pocket, filled with scribbled ideas, half-formed algorithms, app concepts, and dreams of something bigger. Every night, after his shift, Jackson stays late, sneaking into the company's open-access computer lab. It's a dim room packed with outdated PCs, but to him, it's a playground. He teaches himself to code, poring over online tutorials, his fingers flying across the keyboard as lines of Python and JavaScript fill the screen. The guy barely sleeps, fueled by vending machine energy drinks and a stubborn belief that he's meant for more. He overhears the engineers in the cafeteria talking about AI, machine learning models that can predict market trends, optimize supply chains, revolutionize industries. It's like a spark ignites in his brain. AI, he realizes, is the future, and he wants in. Years grind by. Jackson claws his way up, step by painstaking step. First, he's promoted to data entry, mind-numbing work, but it gets him closer to the tech teams. He's the guy who volunteers for the grunt work nobody wants, like cleaning up messy datasets or testing buggy software. He listens, learns, and asks questions.
Keep going with the story.
Oh, you want a story? All right, I'll weave you a tale that'll spark your imagination. Since you didn't...
Hey Grok, tell me a story about a guy named Rob who was at the very bottom of a company, worked his way all the way up for an AI company, and then created his own empire.
All right, let's dive into an epic tale about Rob, a guy who started at the absolute bottom of an AI company and clawed his way up to build his own empire. Buckle up, because this story's got grit, ambition, and a whole lot of heart. In a sprawling city of neon lights and relentless hustle, Rob Martinez was just another face in the crowd. He was 24, fresh out of community college with a degree in computer science that felt more like a participation trophy than a golden ticket. He landed a job at Neural Net Innovations, a flashy AI startup that promised to revolutionize everything from self-driving cars to virtual therapists. But for Rob, it wasn't glamorous. He was hired as a data janitor, entry-level, bottom-of-the-barrel work. His days were spent in a dim basement office, sifting through endless streams of corrupted datasets, cleaning up mislabeled images of cats and stop signs for the company's machine learning models. The pay was barely enough to cover his rent in a cramped apartment he shared with 2 roommates in a questionable plumbing situation. It was thankless work, and his coworkers barely knew his name. Rob wasn't one to complain, though. He had a spark. Call it stubbornness, or maybe just hunger. Every night, after his shift ended at 7, he'd crack open his second-hand laptop and teach himself. He devoured online courses on neural networks, pored over research papers he barely understood at first, and tinkered with code until his eyes burned. He'd mutter to himself, "One day, I'm gonna build something that matters." His roommates thought he was crazy, spending his nights hunched over a screen instead of hitting the bars. But Rob had a vision, even if it was blurry back then. At Neural Net, Rob's work went unnoticed for months. He was the guy who fixed the datasets nobody else wanted to touch. But one day, a crisis hit. The company's flagship project, a predictive model for stock trading, was bombing in trials. The data was a mess, spitting out garbage predictions that could have tanked millions. The senior engineers were in a panic, barking orders and pointing fingers. Rob, who'd been quietly eavesdropping in the break room, saw his chance. He'd noticed a pattern in the dataset errors weeks ago, subtle biases in how the model was trained. He stayed late, unpaid, and built a patch to clean the data and retrain the model. By morning, he slipped a USB drive onto his manager's desk with a post-it note that read, "Try this, Rob." The patch worked. The model's accuracy jumped 20% overnight. Suddenly, Rob wasn't invisible anymore. His manager, Priya, a sharp woman who'd barely spoken to him before, called him into her office. "You did this?" she asked, holding up the USB like it was a relic. Rob nodded, trying not to look too nervous. Priya didn't smile, but she didn't need to. She promoted him to junior data scientist on the spot. It wasn't a corner office, but it was a start. Rob threw himself into the role. He wasn't just good, he was relentless. He'd show up early, debug code nobody else could crack, and ask questions that made senior engineers squirm. He had a knack for seeing the big picture, connecting dots others missed, but he also ruffled feathers. The old guard at Neural Net didn't love a former data janitor outshining them. Whispers started. Who does this kid think he is? Rob ignored them. He wasn't there to make friends. He was there to learn. Years passed, and Rob climbed. Junior data scientist became senior data scientist, then lead engineer. He spearheaded projects that turned Neural Net into a household name, like an AI that could diagnose rare diseases from medical scans with eerie accuracy. By 30, he was the company's youngest director, overseeing a team of 50. He'd swapped his crumbling apartment for a sleek downtown loft, but he still worked like he had something to prove. Maybe because he did. Then came the turning point. Neural Net CEO, a charismatic but ruthless tech bro named Ethan Cole, wanted to pivot the company toward military contracts. Rob saw red flags. The AI they were building could be weaponized, drones that picked targets with no human oversight, surveillance systems that trampled privacy. Rob argued against it in board meetings, his voice steady, but his fists clenched under the table. "We're supposed to help people, not control them," he said. Ethan smirked and told him to stick to code, not ethics. Rob couldn't stomach it. He'd poured his soul into Neural Net, but he wasn't about to build tools for dystopia. So, at 32, he walked away. No safety net, no golden parachute, just a laptop, a half-baked idea, and a fire in his gut. His coworkers thought he was nuts. Quit a director gig at a tech giant in this economy? But Rob had been at the bottom before. He wasn't scared of starting over. He cashed out his savings and rented a tiny office in a sketchy part of town where the walls smelled like mildew and the Wi-Fi was spotty. He called his new venture Synapsis Labs. The name came from a late-night epiphany. AI should connect people, not divide them. His mission was simple but audacious. Build AI that empowered individuals, not corporations or governments. He wanted systems that could teach kids in remote villages, help small businesses outsmart giants, and give regular people a fighting chance. The first year was brutal. Rob was CEO, coder, and janitor all over again. He slept on a cot in the office, surviving on instant noodles and cheap coffee. He pitched to investors who laughed him out of the room. "You're competing with Neural Net? Good luck." But Rob had something they didn't see: grit and a prototype. He built an AI called Lemora, a learning assistant that adapted to any user's needs, from teaching math to analyzing market trends. It was lean, open source, and fiercely independent. Word spread. A viral demo of Lemora helping a farmer optimize crop yields caught the eye of a small venture capital firm. They invested enough for Rob to hire a team, 5 misfits who believed in his vision. Together, they refined Lemora, making it faster, smarter, accessible. By year 2, Synapsis Labs had a cult following. Teachers used Lemora to personalize lessons for struggling students. Entrepreneurs used it to crunch data that big firms charged millions for. The underdogs loved it. Rob's empire grew, but he stayed grounded. He remembered the basement days, the nights of doubt. Synapsis Labs became a beacon for dreamers like him, people who started at the bottom but refused to stay there. By 38, Rob was on magazine covers, hailed as the people's tech titan. His company wasn't just profitable, it was changing lives. Lemora was in schools, startups, even disaster relief zones, helping people rebuild after floods and fires. One day, Rob got an email from Ethan Cole, offering to buy Synapsis for $1 billion. Rob read it, leaned back in his chair, and laughed. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. He built something bigger than money, an empire of impact, forged from the ashes of a data janitor's dreams. And as he looked out over the city skyline from his new office, now buzzing with 100 employees, he whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning."
Keep going.
So, there Rob was, gazing out at the city skyline, the hum of Synapsys Labs' office alive behind him, coders tapping away, engineers debating algorithms, and a whiteboard scrawled with ideas that could reshape the world. The billion-dollar buyout offer from Ethan Cole was still open in his inbox, a digital taunt. Rob deleted it with a flick of his finger, not because he was cocky, but because Synapsys wasn't just a company, it was his soul. Selling out would have been like selling his own heartbeat. Life at the top wasn't all smooth, though. The bigger Synapsys grew, the more enemies it made. NeuralNet, still sore from Rob's departure, started playing dirty. They poached 2 of his best engineers with fat paychecks and spread rumors that Synapsys was overstretched, bleeding cash. Bigger tech giants took notice too, mega corporations with AI divisions that dwarfed Rob's operation. They saw Lamora's open source model as a threat to their walled garden ecosystems. Whispers of lawsuits and patent disputes started circling like vultures. Rob didn't flinch. He'd faced worse odds in that basement at NeuralNet, cleaning up digital slop while dreaming of more. But now, he had a team, a family really, who believed in him. There was Aisha, a brilliant machine learning specialist who'd left a cushy job at a rival firm because she loved Lamora's mission. Javier, the sysadmin who could make servers sing, had been with Rob since the Mildew office days. And May, a UI designer who turned Lamora's interface into something so intuitive, even a grandma in a rural village could use it to learn coding. They weren't just employees, they were his ride-or-die crew. The first big test came when a massive cyber attack hit Synapsys. One morning, the servers went dark, Lamora was offline, and clients from schools to startups were panicking. Rob's team traced it to a sophisticated hack, likely bankrolled by a competitor. Rob barely slept for 3 days, chugging energy drinks and working alongside Javier to rebuild the firewalls. Aisha rewrote chunks of code to patch vulnerabilities, while May kept users calm with transparent updates. By day 4, Lamora was back, stronger than ever. The attack meant to bury them became a badge of honor. Users rallied, praising Synapsys for its resilience. Rob sent his team a simple email. We're tougher than they think. Keep building. The real breakthrough came a year later. Synapsys partnered with a global education nonprofit to deploy Lamora in underfunded schools across 3 continents. The AI adapted to local languages, teaching kids math, science, even critical thinking skills, all tailored to their pace. A viral video showed a 12-year-old girl in a remote Kenyan village using Lamora to design a solar-powered water pump. It racked up millions of views, and suddenly, Synapsys wasn't just a company, it was a movement. But success brought new pressures. Investors pushed Rob to go public, to scale faster, to monetize Lamora's free features. He resisted, knowing that turning Synapsys into another profit-hungry giant would kill its soul. Late one night, alone in his office, Rob found an old USB drive in a drawer, the one he'd used to fix NeuralNet's stock model all those years ago. He held it, remembering the kid who'd stayed up until dawn, fueled by nothing but a dream. That kid was still in him, and he wasn't about to let him down. Rob doubled down on his vision. He launched the Synapsys Foundation.
Keep it going with the foundation.
Anyway, Rob was just getting started, his empire now anchored by the Synapsys Foundation, a force for good that was reshaping lives from dusty villages to urban slums. The foundation wasn't some half-hearted CSR stunt, it was the beating heart of Rob's vision, funded by nearly half of Synapsys Labs' profits. He'd poured his soul into making sure it wasn't just a charity, but a catalyst, empowering people with AI tools to solve their own problems. And that mission was about to face its biggest test yet. The Foundation's flagship program, Lamora Learn, was scaling fast. It had already reached 10 million kids in underserved regions, teaching them everything from algebra to coding through Lamora's adaptive platform. The AI didn't just drill facts, it asked questions, nudged curiosity, and celebrated small wins, like a patient teacher who never got tired. In a small town in rural India, a girl named Annika used Lamora Learn to master Python and built an app that connected local weavers to global markets, lifting her family out of poverty. Stories like hers kept Rob up at night, not with worry, but with a restless drive to do more. But the Foundation's success drew attention, some of it unwelcome. Governments in a few countries got twitchy about an AI teaching kids to think critically. A powerful agribusiness lobby, stung by Lamora Grow's success in helping small farmers, started pushing for regulations to choke Synapsys' operations. And then there was the tech world. Competitors like Omnitech, a behemoth with deep government ties, began lobbying to label open source AI like Lamora a security risk. Rob knew the real risk was to their bottom line. These weren't just threats to his company, they were threats to the Foundation's mission of putting power in people's hands. Rob leaned on his team to fight back. Aisha, now his right-hand woman and head of AI development, proposed a bold move: make Lamora Learn fully decentralized. If they want to shut us down, let's make it impossible, she said, her eyes glinting with defiance. The idea was to distribute Lamora's core systems across thousands of low-cost servers in communities worldwide, hosted by schools, libraries, even small businesses. No single government or corporation could pull the plug. Rob loved it. He greenlit the project, dubbed Lamora Swarm, and put Javier in charge of the tech. Javier, with his knack for making servers hum, worked miracles, rigging up a network that was as resilient as it was rebellious. The rollout wasn't smooth. In one country, officials seized a shipment of servers meant for rural schools, claiming national security concerns. Rob didn't back down. He flew out himself, met with local activists, and rerouted the servers through a network of volunteers who smuggled them in via motorcycles and rickshaws. The story hit social media. Now, Lamora Swarm trended globally, with people sharing photos of kids in dusty classrooms logging into Lamora for the first time. The foundation wasn't just tech, it was a movement now, and Rob was its reluctant figurehead. Back home, the foundation faced a different challenge, but demand was outstripping supply. Hospitals and crisis zones begged for real-time epidemic tracking, while rural clinics needed portable diagnostic tools. Rob hired Dr. Elena Torres, a public health expert who'd spent years fighting outbreaks in war zones. Elena didn't mince words. "Your AI is great, Rob, but we need hardware, cheap, tough, and idiot-proof." Rob took the challenge personally. He pulled an all-nighter, sketching designs for a rugged, solar-powered tablet preloaded with LamoraCare. By year's end, Synapsys was manufacturing them at cost, shipping thousands to clinics in places where electricity was a luxury. The foundation's work wasn't just about tech, it was about trust. Rob made sure every project involved local leaders. In a Brazilian favela, community organizers helped tailor Lamora Learn to teach in Portuguese slang, making it feel like a friend, not a foreign tool. In Nigeria, farmers co-designed Lamora Grow's irrigation algorithms, blending AI with centuries-old knowledge. Rob flew to these places himself, not as a savior, but as a listener, often returning with notebooks full of ideas scribbled in his ring. The pressure was relentless, though. Rob was 42 now, gray creeping into his temples, but he still worked like the data janitor who'd burned the midnight oil. His team worried he was burning out. May, the UI designer turned creative director, cornered him one day. "You're not Superman, Rob," she said, arms crossed. "Delegate, or you'll break." Rob grinned, but he knew she was right. He started grooming leaders, Aisha for CEO of Synapsys Labs, Elena for the Foundation's global ops. He wasn't stepping back, just building a machine that could run without him. Then came the Global AI Summit, a glitzy affair where tech titans flexed their influence. Rob was invited to keynote, a first for Synapsys. The old guard expected him to play nice, maybe pitch a partnership. Instead, Rob took the stage and called out the industry's greed. "AI isn't a toy for billionaires or a weapon for governments," he said, his voice steady but fire in his eyes. "It's a tool for people, farmers, teachers, kids with dreams bigger than their circumstances. If we lock it behind paywalls or turn it into a surveillance machine, we're failing humanity." The room went silent, then erupted. Half the crowd cheered, the other half shifted uncomfortably in their suits. Omnitech's CEO walked out. Rob didn't care. The speech lit a spark. Grassroots groups rallied behind the foundation, volunteering to host Lamora Swarm servers. Donations poured in, not from tycoons, but from everyday people, giving $5, $10, whatever they could spare. The foundation used every cent to expand, launching Lamora Voice, an AI that translated indigenous languages into digital tools, preserving cultures while teaching skills. A Navajo elder wept when he saw his grandkids learning math in their native tongue. Rob's empire was no longer just Synapsys. It was a global network of dreamers, coders, farmers, teachers, all linked by the Foundation's mission. Late one night, back in his office, Rob found that old USB drive again, the one from his neural net days. He turned it over in his hands, thinking of the kid who'd started it all. That kid was still there, pushing him to keep going. The Foundation wasn't the end. It was the foundation for something bigger, a world where AI didn't just serve the powerful, but lifted up the forgotten. And Rob, now a leader, a rebel, a builder, knew he'd fight for that world until his last breath.